Is Jed York about to get really cheap with 49ers players? There's a new article out that says that he might. Plus, the Niners are making a big change for the scouting combine. Michelle has her first draft crush, and one former 49er opened his mouth and he probably shouldn't have hit send. We'll talk about it all on today's Gold Diggers podcast, brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Diggers podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. She's Michelle Majuk. Michelle, what's going on?
Hey, it is 30 degrees in Houston right now. Tell me why. Tell me why I moved to the south for it to be 30 degrees outside. So I'm not happy. I want warmth. So yeah, that's where I'm at today.
You're cranky because of the weather. I'm cranky because I haven't had any lunch yet. So it's going to be a festival on today's show, but we have plenty to talk about. There's an article from Tim Kawakami that is full of interesting nuggets about Jed York and whether he's going to pay players and the culture of the 49ers this offseason that I want to get to. You have your first draft crush, which we definitely want to talk about. Kyle Shanahan is going to go to the scouting combine, which will be very interesting. And Devondre Campbell tweeted something very, very dumb, and we'll talk about it all. But let's start with the article from Tim Kawakami in the San Francisco Standard. I sent it to you this morning. I've been talking about it for the past couple days. I thought it was very interesting. The article is called Deebo Samuel's Exit is a Sign of the 49ers' New Hardline Attitude. And before I get into my takeaways, Michelle, what was your just general reaction after you read the article?
That they want to get better at making decisions quickly and they're frustrated with themselves. I mean, this is all coming from Tim, right? So we don't really know what they're feeling in the front office, but either he's projecting this onto them or the front office is actually frustrated with the contracts they've been giving out and they think they've overpaid for players and what the production they've been. And they would like, hopefully they have decided that they need to make decisions quicker, whether it to be the trade the guys or pay them before you have to outrageously pay them. They need to make decisions faster and more accurately, really.
Yeah, that was one of the big takeaways from the article for me. Tim says in the article that essentially the Niners sort of have buyer's remorse, that they're upset that they gave Deebo Samuel all that money. They're upset that they didn't trade him either time when he requested a trade or before last season. They're upset with Brandon Aiyuk that they went to $30 million a year with Brandon Aiyuk. And they're even upset that they gave Nick Bosa $34 million a year. And it doesn't make any sense to me, Michelle, because they have no one to blame but themselves. Jed York, if you didn't want to pay Brandon Aiyuk $30 million a year, then you shouldn't have paid him. You're the owner. The buck stops with you. You can say, well, we give Kyle Shanahan full control. It's on you, buddy. It is on you. And you can't sit there and say, well, we never should have given all these people all this money. Like, you're the one that has the power to stop it, and you didn't do it. So you can't be mad at Kyle and John when you're the one signing the checks.
I think they look back at Nick Bosa's contract and they think, we're paying Nick Bosa top of the market money, but he deserves it at this time, right? Thinking that other guys were going to then get paid like Nick Bosa, right? Like, how you set the market and then it gets reset and it gets reset and it gets reset. The issue with they went so above and beyond market with Nick Bosa, it really doesn't make any sense. I don't know what their tactic was with that. Like, were they negotiating at all? I actually don't even know how Nick Bosa did this. $34 million a year, while no one else is paid more than $28 million a year still at edge rusher. Like, how did they go up that much? Especially considering when you're comparing Bosa to the TJ Watts, the Myles Garrett's. Like, he is at the bottom of the elites, right? I wouldn't put him at the top. So, And even when you're a bottom of the elite, you're going to set the market. It's just crazy. He set it by $6 million per year, and no one's gotten close to that afterwards.
And that one, because it's so far and above, is a little different than the Aiyuk and the Deebo contracts. I'll say that. I still think, like, Jed York, you've made a ton of money. You've won a ton of games. The value of the franchise, they're trying to value the franchise at $9 billion, which would be the most ever. Like, I don't know why you'd be upset about this, but okay, if you want to give them the Bosa contracts. But like Aiyuk and Deebo, like, they had teams making offers for both of those guys. and yet they didn't trade him. And it just seems to me, Michelle, that the Niners' basic strategy when it comes to handling all this stuff is, well, you're not good enough. We don't want to pay you, but teams are trading for you. We're too good to trade. You're too good of a player for us to trade away, but not good enough for us to pay. And it's like, how can both of those things be true?
And then they end up paying them and then not getting the production they wanted, and then also not ever trading them in time. So then you don't get anything back for them. So it's this whole cycle of bad decisions all in a row. Now, I'm not saying I'd be any better as a GM, right? Because last offseason, I was sitting here saying this offense needs Deebo. This offense runs through Deebo. Don't trade him, right? And I was clearly wrong. I will take that on the shoulders. This offense needs to not have Deebo. So I'm on the opposite side here. We were also both saying pay Aiyuk, pay him. So, and I'm sure when Nick Bosa is up, we're saying just give Nick Bosa whatever he wants, right? Give him the $34 million, give him whatever he wants. So we're not any better at it, but the point is that's not our job. And they need to be better at just making decisions quicker because they're so slow, hesitant. I think the word is hesitant, right? That I'm looking for. That can't work in a front office. You cannot be hesitant. You cannot be I just feel like every time they give a contract, they're like, should we? I guess now it's right before the season. We got to just do it because what are we going to do? It's like they're just doing it to do it instead of actually thinking it through or making a conscious decision quickly and what they're doing, what they want to do.
And we've seen them do smart contracts. The Dre Greenlaw contract they signed that is now up. Phenomenal contract for the 49ers. They got it done out of the blue. No one was even talking about a Greenlaw extension. Then it was like, bam. And they got a top 10 linebacker for nothing, for pennies on the dollar. The Diamador Lenore extension this season. Nobody was talking about that. Bam, out of the blue. I don't even think he's in the top 10 in average per year for corners. Phenomenal contract for the 49ers. So they can do it. I don't know. When it comes to the biggest contracts, the biggest of the big, they just need to decide what they want to do early. Do we want to pay this guy? Yes or no? Because you know what the market rates are. We can see all the other contracts. So you should look at the market rate and say, do we want to pay this guy that? If the answer is no, then decide it's no and move on. But they don't. It's like, well, we will pay him, but only if we can pay him. You can't approach it that way. You have got to approach it in a much, much different way. And again, I just think it's really weird that now all of a sudden they're expressing all this remorse. And by the way, how do you think Nick Bosa feels hearing this? Oh, well, now the 49ers regret paying you your contract. Or Brandon Aiyuk, who's currently rehabbing an injury. The contract's not even a year old, and they're like, oh, we never should have done that. How do you think the players feel hearing this stuff?
They're making the money. So, Nick Bosa, you did steal. You stole a lot of money because you're making so much more than the other elite edge rushers, or even just the other top edge rushers getting paid. It doesn't always when you look at the top guys getting paid at positions, it's not always the most elite guys. It's just whoever comes up next, basically, right? But they were so off with where they thought the edge rusher market was going to go. I think that's the biggest concern here, is that they thought the edge rusher market was going to explode, right? This is where they thought it was headed, and it wasn't even close. So it's interesting that they're so off on that market, because if they knew that after a couple off seasons, still no edge rusher was going to make over $28 million a year, there's no way they would agree to that 34.
Well, if they had signed Nick Bosa before, I don't know, 4 days before the start of the regular season, maybe they wouldn't have had to give him $34 million. It got to a point where Bosa's like, I got all the leverage here. They got nothing without me. And when you have leverage, you get deals like the one Nick Bosa currently has with the 49ers. So good for him. Kyle Kami goes on to write in this article, quote, from what I've heard from a few 49ers people over the last few months is that this offseason will be the time to try to counteract some faulty decisions and move on from poor performances. Great. Faulty decisions like keeping Kyle Juszczyk around, keeping Jake Brendel around. If you're not going to tolerate this stuff anymore, then don't tolerate it. And look, they're getting rid of Deebo. They got rid of Nick Sorensen. They got rid of Brian Schneider. So far, what we've seen is that they aren't tolerating poor performances. But then let's go see it from the rest of the roster, too. Keep it going.
I'm actually they are making moves. They're making changes. As long as they cut Deebo, or if they figure out a trade partner, cool. But as long as they get rid of him, right, they're really going to prove to me that they are trying to make changes. There are teams out there that say they're going to make changes, don't do anything. Yes, I'm talking about my Steelers. Mike Tomlin, serious changes happening. They didn't fire any of their coaches that stink. but okay. So at least they are trying to make changes and they're open to it, and we're seeing them do the work. But talking about these contracts here, in that article, it says that neither side for Brock Purdy or the 49ers think there's going to be like this big, long, like fight, right, for this contract.
Mhm.
Then what? Then get it done. If it's not going to be this big, long fight, and it says like they just need to send out their best offer and they think it'll, then what are you doing? Send it out. Like,
Right.
what are you doing? Send it out and get it done. And Tim says in the article, like, I expect this to be done, around April. What? Why? That's way too late, in my opinion. Again, you need to know what you have in cap and where his contract lies in certain years to know who you can sign and how much room you have. Like, I just think it's crazy that Tim is saying, like, yeah, April, that sounds good. Like, no, do it now. What are you waiting for?
Jimmy Garoppolo signed on February 8th, 2018. It was already done. The deal back then was done by this point in 2018. And he was the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. And they got it done February 8th. The Niners could have reached an agreement with Brock Purdy the second the regular season ended. So they've already had months to work on this and get a deal done. There is no reason why it should take till April. Tim said it in the article, and he and Matt Barrows also said it on the latest episode of the 49ers Plus Minus podcast that they pegged it right around April 15th, give or take. There's no reason why it has to be that long. Kyle Kami says in the article, I don't think 49ers management is in the mood to mess around too much, even with their QB1. Does that mean that they don't want to go back and forth? Does that mean that they only want to pay him X amount of dollars and then they're just going to decide not to sign him? I don't know, but I think it's really hilarious that the 49ers, first of all, who is this coming from? It's not coming from John Lynch. It's not coming from Kyle Shanahan. They wanted all those deals to get done. It's coming from one of either two people in my mind, either Parag Marathe, who does all their contract stuff, or Jed York. That's it. Those are the only two people I feel like this could possibly be coming from. And, one thing about Jed is he loves to be in front of the camera when things are good. When the Niners went to the Super Bowl, he started giving interviews left, right, and center. He just walked on to Kay Adams' set, like out of the blue. No one even knew he was going to be on. He shows up to the Kay Adams show. He goes on. He gives an interview. He gave an interview with reporters for the 49ers before they even left for the Super Bowl. He loves to be in front of the camera when things are good. When things are bad, he loves to talk to reporters and leak stuff. He did it all the time, especially at the end of the Harbaugh era. He's doing it now. I think this is coming from Jed and Parag, and I think it's a bad look, frankly.
So what is your suggestion on how they should move forward with their contracts, right? Because you don't want them to overpay, obviously. Mm-hmm. We don't want them to underpay. And we want them to make fast decisions. So what could they do this year besides the Brock Purdy thing that would make you feel better about how they're moving forward with their decision-making in this front office?
Just decide early. No more prolonged struggles. Like there's never a need for that. There is never a need for that. And the fact that they've gone through this again with Kittle, with Trent Williams, with Deebo, with Aiyuk. How many times does this have to bite them in the ass before they learn from this? And if that means that some of these guys don't get signed and they get traded, that's okay too. You'll get assets back for them, and then it's on you to use those assets to make your team, as good as it was with that player, or hopefully better. Like that's fine, but they can't keep doing things this way. And if that means that some guys don't get signed, it would kind of suck. Because I did give Jed York credit for signing the guys. He has paid a lot of money. That's his only job. He's made a lot of money too, but he did pay them, and not every owner does. The Cowboys, they don't sign anybody in free agency. They don't make any moves, really. The Bengals almost never pay. But there are plenty of teams that don't pay out as much money as Jed York has paid. But this is a clearly avoidable situation, and that hopefully they do. Maybe what Tim is saying is right, and they are going to change from now on. Okay, fine, but you only have yourselves to blame.
I will say they're in a great cap space situation. They're projected to have about $52 million in cap space. Yes, that's before they sign Brock, but again, like Brock's first year cap hit does not have to be that large. He's already projected for a $5 million cap hit. Put that to $20 million. And that's only adding $15 million to it. You can cut Spencer Burford and Jordan Elliott to save $5 million. Like, they're going to have a good, like, $35 to $40 million in cap space after signing Brock Purdy for the 2025 season. That's a lot to work with. And I would like them to focus on the offensive line in the draft, maybe a veteran wide receiver. But I want this all figured out. Like, the Brock Purdy is the first little puzzle piece here to know where to spend their money in free agency, and then all of this before the draft to know, okay, what are the actual, like, missing pieces of our roster that we need to fill in the draft and focus on. And obviously you never want to go in and say draft for need only, because that's how people fail in drafts. But it's a good thing to know and being able to put it all together. And I do think if we go into free agency, which starts in a couple weeks, I mean, it's not that far out, 20
March
days?
12th.
Yeah, it's like in 20 days from now. If you go into free agency without the Brock Purdy deal done, I don't think we're going to see very many signings at all. Like, I think it's going to take them time to sign anybody.
Again, we've talked about this really since the regular season ended, because that's when he's eligible to sign a new deal. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, why haven't you? And to be fair, we have heard that the two sides are talking, which is good. But, like, if I were the 49ers, I'd be like, all right, we're not going into March without a deal. Like, we're getting this deal done. I don't care if we have to sit in a room for 3 straight days and not leave the room, order in, get the lunches, work through whatever it is. But, like, you can do this. There's no reason not to do it at all. And so we'll see if the 49ers actually do it. I'm hopeful that they will. I hope it gets done before April. But I think that will be something that everybody has their eye on. Like, okay, you go into free agency without a deal. Are you active, or are you just sort of sitting around? And then, even if you get it done in April, did you miss out on some potential signings in March? Like, that's not as harmful as a, like, prolonged holdout in a negotiation would be, but it's still pretty harmful because you got a lot of holes to fill.
And I don't want there to be 1 second of this negotiation that we hear leaks that they might just force Brock Purdy to play in the final year deal. It's never going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear fans saying, well, he has to. No, it's not going to happen. He's not going to be playing on his $1 million deal. Like, it's just not happening this year. So I don't want to hear that ever leaked from the 49ers front office in terms of, like, trying to negotiate. I don't want to hear that. And if I do, I'm going to lose all faith in this front office.
Tanisha, YouTube channel member, says Kyle and John need to stop leading with their heart when it comes to these players. They need to learn how to make hard decisions. Rams and Eagles don't have a problem with this. I completely agree, Tanisha. Thank you so much for that comment. Look at the Rams. They're looking to get rid of Matt Stafford. He came to that franchise and immediately delivered a Super Bowl championship. And the Rams are like, God, we can't pay this guy. We got to move on. Like, yeah, is it brutal? Maybe. But you know what? Matt Stafford can come back 5 years from now when he's in the Hall of Fame, and they'll honor him and they can retire his jersey and it'll all be fine. But this is how good teams stay good. Think with your head, not with your heart. I said the exact same thing. I made a video on the channel about the Jordan Mason contract decision and all the options the Niners have with the tenders and all that stuff. And I said, think with your head, not with your heart. And that's how you're going to end up in a much better place. And as long as you treat these players respectfully and you're honest with them and you say, look, we just can't do it right away, and you don't lead them along, that's fine. It is a business after all. And the 49ers need to treat it as such and not, the Cabo clique. You're not just hanging out with your boys.
And it's not just the heart in the good way, right? It's not just like treating these players fantastic and giving them everything what they want because you like them. We also have the Kyle Shanahan the other way. There's certain players he does not like. And then all of a sudden they're in the doghouse and there's nothing they can do. And he's very emotional coach, and definitely holds grudges against players, and then definitely has his clique. And it seems like players really like him, though. But maybe we're just hearing from the players in his clique that are overpowering everybody else. Like, I would love them to have these interviews with some of the lower guys on the team and just get their responses. Like, go talk to Dante Pettis about how Kyle Shanahan was the coach. I would love to know what he has to say.
I'd be fascinated to hear that as well. And look, no coach is beloved by every single player in the locker room. Of course, I get that. But, we do hear from a lot of the same players when it comes to Kyle. We always hear from George Kittle, who loves Kyle. Fred loves Kyle. Like, we get that, of course. But it would be interesting to hear. I think most of the guys do like Kyle Shanahan, but I bet you if you ask Brandon Aiyuk, he might feel a little differently about the whole situation. He would be one of the bigger name guys, I think, that might not give you like a 2 thumbs up review. The Law of Awe says, not if it's worth this much. Jed has played this wild. Stop blaming Kyle. This is all Jed. You can't blame Kyle Shanahan for, quote unquote, like forcing you to do these deals because you have more power than Kyle, Jed. You just have to act like. The problem is Jed doesn't. Jed just wants to be at the cool kids table. That's really all he wants. Like when the Niners went to the Super Bowl after beating the Lions, Jed was like in heaven, right? Because they had just had this incredible comeback in the NFC Championship game. They had gotten back to the Super Bowl, and it was all champagne and strawberries. And he's giving interviews, and he's talking about how much he's grown since the end of the Harbaugh era and all that crap. That's really what Jed York likes. Would he like to win the Super Bowl? Sure, of course. Who wouldn't? But that was really the sweet spot for him.
What year was it when a reporter asked him if he's going to fire himself or whatever? He was like, well, I'm the owner, so I'm not going to fire myself.
Yep. That was after Jim Harbaugh was dismissed after the 2013 or 2014, I think. And that was actually Grant Cohn's dad, I believe, that asked him that question.
That adds up.
I think that was Lowell Cohn. Yep. And it was a great question because Jed kept saying, hold me accountable. And so Lowell's question was like, great, how do we do that? And Jed was like, yeah, you can't. Which I thought it was a fair question. And I thought it was an honest answer from Jed because he's right. You don't dismiss owners.
Yeah, but why did Jed even say hold me accountable?
Well, see, that's the thing. People say that, especially people in power. And then when someone follows up with, great, how do we do that? Then they're stuck. And Lowell put them in a box. And good on him for doing that. So that was sort of the takeaways I had from the Tim Kawakami article. I think it's good. We had a comment earlier from one of our YouTube channel members from JCG 1987 who said, Deebo leaving forces Shanahan to redo his offense. We've talked about that. I agree. It was just time for it to end, and it's going to end. Now, I did see Jeremy Fowler had a tweet that said that teams have already reached out to Deebo and his agent about potential trades and that there are discussions between all three sides. I don't know how much I believe that. Also, a discussion could be the Steelers calling up the Niners and saying, hey, can we give you a 7th-round pick for Deebo? And the Niners will probably say no. And it's like, that's a discussion, technically.
Yeah, and if the Steelers better not trade for him. I do think Deebo's just shot, like done. He's done. He had his and there's like NFL careers do not last a long time. There are very few guys that can put up, 5, 6, 7 straight years of consistent great performances and last in the NFL. I mean, those are the rare form guys how many guys just have a couple good years and kind of fall off the face of the earth? I think that's Deebo. But just to dig into how bad Deebo was this year, he added 4.3 expected points on his 51 receptions. Just 4.3 expected points added. Amon-Ra St. Brown added 95 expected points added. But also to compare just how bad Deebo was, again, 4.3. Jalen Tolbert of the Cowboys, not a good wide receiver. He had 49 receptions. Again, Deebo had 51. He added 20 points, expected points on his receptions. Deebo added 4. So 51 receptions, 51 times they gave him the ball in hopes of gaining 4 points added. That's all he added to the season of what they were expecting. It was just an additional 4 points on the entire year. It's pathetic.
It was pathetic. Deebo had 3 receiving touchdowns all year, one of which was a little pop pass. Like I think it was against Miami. It was like where he runs right in front of the quarterback and the quarterback just throws it up and technically it counts as a pass. That was one of his 3 receiving touchdowns. It was bad. It was just bad. I
do just think he's going to get cut.
Yeah, I think so too. Whatever. At this point,
they have to just cut him before that date, March 22nd. Yeah.
Yep. There's like a $15 million option bonus that's due. Teams are not stupid. They know that. They know that Jed York is not going to want to pay that out. So the Niners, and if the Niners were to take like a draft pick for him, they take the $30 million cap hit all on this season instead of spreading it out. So that's the most likely, unless they get some, who knows, if they got a crazy trade offer, maybe they would do it. But yeah. The other thing that Tim said was, oh, well, we're not going to tolerate behaviors in the past that we tolerated. And he talks about how Deebo is 20 pounds overweight by the end of last season. It's like, you should never tolerate those. Like, that's why you become bad, because you tolerate crap like that. And Fred Warner loves to talk about the standard, right? We have the standard. We got to play up to the standard. Well, the part of the standard is not tolerating guys being out of shape, not tolerating behaviors that don't contribute to winning. So if there's all these behaviors that they're not going to tolerate anymore, like why the hell were they tolerating them in the first place?
Deebo is just way too comfortable with Kyle. That's just simply that. And Kyle was too comfortable with Deebo. It's both. I think they're both better off without each other. Now, I don't think Deebo will ever get close to what he was in 2021. And he can go to another team. Maybe he could be more productive. Maybe he can lose weight and be serious, but he's not going to do that under Kyle. He's not going to do that in San Francisco. It's time to just divorce.
Benali says the Deebo trade news sounds like the news the 49ers put into the media. Yeah, we've totally gotten requests for Deebo, a lot, like so many. So you should probably call us just, if you want them, just throwing that out there. And I hope I did your comment justice, Benali, because I feel like just reading it, that's how you would have wanted it read.
No, I think you read that perfectly, and that's exactly what they're doing. I don't think the only team I can envision calling is the Broncos.
Yes,
Sean Payton, because he keeps talking about wanting the Joker in his offense. He wants that Joker piece. Maybe he thinks Deebo still has that in him, can be the Joker piece. But again, the only way a team would trade for him is if they feel like Deebo maybe wouldn't choose them, right, once he's cut, because then there might be a bidding war on him, which I highly doubt. But then also it has to be a good enough trade offer that it makes sense that the 49ers would take, that they're not put into this position where they have to, like you said, do the $30 million in cap space this year. Like, instead of being flexible, like, I think they'd rather not have the 7th round pick and instead be able to be flexible than getting it. Like, I don't know, a 7th round pick could be completely pointless, or it could be Brock Purdy.
Right. Or it could be the quarterback they're about to give a $55 million a year contract, or whatever the number might end up being. Before we move on to some of the combine stuff and Michelle's draft crush, I do want to switch gears for just a second, because for anyone that doesn't know, Michelle and I do a show on Bleacher Report every Monday and Wednesday. We do a live show on the Bleacher Report app, which you can join us. And one of the things we talked about most recently was Joey Bosa. Should the 49ers go out and get Joey Bosa? What would it cost? That type of thing. And I just happened to check, Michelle. There are odds up for Joey Bosa's next team. And the Niners are not number one. The Niners are actually number 2. Number 1 is the Detroit Lions. Oh, that doesn't look any better. Sorry, I'm trying to fit it fancy on the screen. Lions are plus 225. Then the Niners are second at plus 250. Then it's the Eagles and Bills at plus 300. And then everybody else after that. Are you surprised the Niners are not number 1?
The Lions really need another edge rusher, but I think if Myles Garrett does get traded to anyone, I do think it'll be to the Lions. It just makes too much sense. Now, again, I don't think Joey Bosa gets traded to anyone. So Joey Bosa will get cut, I truly think. And then he gets to decide. Now, the Lions would have to offer him a lot more than the 49ers, I think, for him to choose to go there. You're playing in a cold weather state. No, it is in a dome, but still you have to live in Detroit instead of San Francisco. I do think that's a little bit different. And then you get to go play with your brother. I mean, unless they don't have a super close relationship, that would be a hard thing to pass unless the Lions were giving you so much more money. So I do think if he's cut, unless the 49ers are not interested at all, I don't know how he wouldn't be a 49er.
Yeah, I think I can't see a world where the 49ers wouldn't be interested at all because of the Bosa connection, because they need pass rushers, and Joey Bosa can still be a contributor as a pass rusher. He can't be, you're not getting a Nick Bosa clone or anything close to it. But if he's a piece of what you do along the defensive line, that could be a smart decision for the 49ers, assuming he doesn't want a pile of money. The Lions, I'm sure, could give him a pile of money. The 49ers shouldn't. They have money.
No team should give Joey Bosa a pile of money. He's just a name. He's not elite. He's average, and he can offer really great plays on, like, he can have great games, and he can be, have those fantastic games, but he's just a name at this point that, take the name off the jersey. He'd be an average edge rusher who would be fine to sign, right? He would be a good guy to add as a rotational piece. So if Joey Bosa is willing to come in and not ask for insane money, then I'm open to that.
So you can bet on that if you're feeling lucky. If you feel like you know what Joey's fortunes are, you can do it at BetUS. Or if that's not your deal, BetUS also has a casino. If you like slots or live casino dealers, you can take advantage of a BetUS amazing 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 or 250% for crypto sign-up bonus up to $5,000. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this video. Okay, Michelle, let's talk about your draft crush, because this is one of my favorite times of the year, because now is the time of year where my phone can just go bing, and Michelle will send me a text and it'll say, check out the highlights of this guy. I love this guy. What do you think of that? And it's just like, because I'm not into college football as much, during the year, I don't know anything about anybody. And then Michelle sends me somebody, and then I just Google their highlights, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's an absolute freak. This is incredible. I can't believe it. Can we really get this guy? I start to get into it a little more. So tell everybody who your draft crush was today that you talked to me about.
My draft crush is Michigan's defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant. I don't know why I'm so in on the 49ers getting a defensive tackle this year. Like, clearly, this has been my goal for them to fix this interior defensive line over even edge rusher. But Kenneth Grant, I mean, when you watch him, he is such a big boy. He is a big boy with wheels. And nothing's more fun than watching a big boy that can like run around and just dominate. Like nearly 340 pounds. At least that's what he's listed at. We'll see, like at the combine next week, we'll see what he actually weighs in at. But I do think he's going to dominate the I think he's going to be a big talking point at the combine because of how big he is and the speed and the athleticism that he'll bring to that. But when you watch him, he's a force. He's just a force. He's really good run defender, but he also is a very, very good pass rusher too, for up the middle, like being a defensive interior defensive lineman who's that big. Like, he is just a guy that cannot be blocked easily. Now I love that he played on a program like Michigan, right? Facing hard teams, being on such a good defense, getting that coaching. Now, he did play right next to Mason Graham, who is also expected to go top 5. Maybe that made his life easier, but he just looks like such a beast, man. I mean, he's giving me Jalen Carter vibes watching him. And Jalen Carter was a huge part of them winning the Super Bowl this year, just the whole year of being dominant on defense.
That was the scary part for me, is like, well, he's playing up against another good interior defensive lineman. But if you're watching on the stream right now, you could see some highlights of him. First of all, he looks every bit 340 pounds.
Yeah, he does.
He looks huge. The things that jumped out to me, and I get it, I'm not a scout, but the things that jumped out to me were, one, he's really good at getting the offensive lineman's hands off of him. Like, he's good at disengaging, and he's very aware of what's going on around him. Like, there were multiple times where he would peel off the offensive line to break up screen passes and things like that. And he moves laterally really surprisingly well for a guy that's his size. Like, he can get down parallel to the line of scrimmage incredibly fast for a dude his size. And there are a lot of plays in the highlights where he's just blowing people up and blowing up plays, even if he doesn't make the tackle. Like the one right there, he doesn't even make the tackle, but he's in the backfield so fast that the play is just completely disrupted.
I'm really getting on him. And it's so funny. If you look at mock drafts, he can go anywhere from, 10 to 30. Like, they're pretty much all mock drafts for all these prospects, besides like the top 5, 6 guys, are going all over the place right now. The combine will help. And as all these scouts get more information and do more work, it'll start to be more consensus, I feel like, across the board where these guys will go. But I do think after the combine, Kenneth Grant is going to be one of those guys who is consistently mocked inside the top 15 after the combine. And I'm just really excited to see his performance. Now, maybe I'm just totally wrong and he'll not do anything of greatness, but this has definitely become my draft crush. I would love them to go defensive tackle. They're in their first pick. This would be my dream. So you got Nick Bosa, then you have Kenneth Grant. You can keep Malik Collins, that's fine, but I also want them to sign BJ Hill in free agency. So you have those 3 rotating at defensive tackle: Kenneth Grant, BJ Hill, and Malik Collins, right? And then for the second edge rusher across from Nick Bosa, you sign Joey Bosa cheap after he gets cut. And then you also signed Chase Young. I want to bring him back. I think he's been a really great rotational guy over the last couple of years. And because he has that bust title on him, because number 2 overall, he's been really, really good, actually. Like, his quarterback pressure rate is through the roof. He's been consistent over the last 2 seasons, I'll say too, especially this past year with the Saints. I think he really showed up. So that would be my goal. You got Nick Bosa, Kenneth Grant, BJ Hill, Malik Collins, and then you got Joey Bosa
and Chase
Young, and You said Drake Jackson's coming back. So those three retained.
Ooh, wow. That
He's still a piece that's coming back. We were excited for him to see what he can do.
How about the fact that you just set up like Nick Bosa's like fantasy land? He's got his brother and he's got Chase Young. We're just going to get every Ohio State defensive lineman. Like anybody else that Nick Bosa might want on the team.
That instantly changes the defense right there, though. I'm telling you, if that all happened, that defensive line would be so stinking good.
How are you making the little thumbs up, thumbs down bubble appear on the screen?
I don't know. I'm not doing anything.
That was weird. But
it must be someone liking something on YouTube.
The computer liked your idea and then didn't like your idea because you got a thumbs up and then a thumbs down. I don't know that Chase Young, I don't know how the 49ers feel about him. I know a lot of fans criticized him. I criticized him at times because it looked to me like he was half-assing it in the NFC Championship game. Then in the Super Bowl, he was very good in the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I would be open to it. Again, it all comes down to a cost thing, as long as you're not paying too much money. But that was a non-crazy plan that would significantly upgrade the 49ers defensive line, like in a major, major way. And I hope that they put that kind of effort into it, Michelle, because I don't want them to just say, oh, Robert Saleh's back, he's going to fix everything. Like, no, you have to put Robert Saleh in a position to succeed. It's the same thing I said about Nick Sorensen. As much as his defenses drove me crazy, the players that he had to work with were not good either. It was the combination of both of those things, which is why the defense was as bad as it was. So give Robert Saleh some pieces and let him go to work.
A lot of people, like all the mocks I'm seeing, so many of them are giving the 49ers Will Johnson from Michigan, the corner. I don't know. I unless this corner is going to be a generational talent, I really don't want them to go cornerback. Like unless he's going to be a shutdown elite corner that's unstoppable, and that's really not Will Johnson's profile. Like he's not even number 1 or number 2 in order of corners in this draft. No one's like he's an amazing talent you cannot miss out on. It's just kind of like, yeah, he can be really good in the NFL. Like he has a skill set. That's not. I don't want them to go corner in that way. And unless you just are certain that he could be such an elite corner, that takes away half of a field.
But even if he could, I think I'd still rather have a defensive lineman. Like,
well, no, if you could get a Patrick Surtain or something like that, I would go with that route.
Yeah, I guess. But like they got freaking carved at the end of the year. Guys were just running through them like Swiss cheese. And as great as it would be to have a shutdown corner, they don't help in that area. So I'm biased. I see what you're saying. Like, it'd never be bad to have a shutdown corner, of course. Like, if all of a sudden you make Diamador Lenore your second best corner, holy crap. Like, that's a really good place to be. But I think I skew a little bit towards the defensive line, but that's just my sort of personal bias. I did see that it looks like Kyle Shanahan is going to go to the Combine this year. Now, he's not going to speak. John Lynch is going to speak from the Combine at, I think, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. So that'd be Wednesday, the 26th. John Lynch will speak. So he'll get asked about Brock and all that stuff. Kyle will be at the Combine. Here is the question, because we're hearing a lot about how the 49ers are not going to tolerate, behaviors that they didn't like anymore. So the question is Jed York telling Kyle Shanahan, you get your ass to that Combine with the 11th overall pick? Or, and I think this is the more likely scenario, or now because the 49ers season ended so early, Kyle has gotten a lot of the stuff that he had been working on during the Combine in previous years. He's gotten that crap done already because he's had the extra time. And so now he has time to go to the Combine.
Well, it's just insane to me that he has such a big say in these draft picks and he hasn't been at the Combine. It's just such a Kyle Shanahan thing to do. Oh, he bothers me so much. Yeah, he needs, if I'm Jed York, get to the Combine. Your draft picks have been pretty bad. I mean, like, especially the guys that you're going to bat for. So please get your booty to the Combine, talk to these players, watch these players. Because I think so much of the Combine is getting the interviews with the players, right? It's not so much like their athleticism. I mean, how many times have we seen the guy be like the most athletic at a Combine and completely fail in the NFL or struggle at the Combine and be great, right? There's different sides of it. But getting to talk to all these players and interviewing them and seeing their personalities, I mean, that's something that we never get, right? We can only go off the tape and the stats. We don't get to know if they're crazy or if they're not going to try hard, or if they really are in this to be the best, or they have other emotional issues too that they need to resolve before they can be good. Like, we don't get any of that, but that's what you get at the combine. And Kyle Shanahan not going in recent years is just embarrassing to me personally.
Well, they do tape all the interviews, so it's not like he still gets to
It doesn't
watch.
matter. You need to be able to be the one asking the questions, be in front of them, see how they are. Like, so many like, you could just get vibes off people. You don't get vibes off of on tape.
I can't say how valuable it is or it isn't. Sean McVay's been skipping the combine for a long time. He kind of started like this new idea of coaches skipping the combine, and the Rams have had some really good drafts recently. I'm not saying,
but less need. Like, is he as involved? Like, pretty much Kyle Shanahan is the 49ers GM. Is that the case for Sean McVay? I don't think as much.
I don't know. I think that, Kyle, I think a lot of times what happens with the 49ers is like the scouting and John Lynch look at a guy and they're like, hey, here's all our recommendations. And then Kyle looks at the guy. And then if Kyle doesn't have a strong opinion on it, and again, I don't know how this works. I don't know if this is the case, but in my head, it's like if Kyle doesn't have a strong opinion on it, he'll trust them. But if there's a guy that Kyle wants, he pounds the table, or a guy that he doesn't want, he pounds the table and he gets his decision. But again, I could be totally wrong about how that works. I don't know. Clearly, Kyle is heavily involved. There's no question about that. The specifics of how it works out, I don't know. But it looks like, according to Matt Barrows, Kyle Shanahan will be at the combine for the first time in a few years. So, hooray.
Good job, Kyle. Good job doing your job.
Our own Jason Aponte will also be at the combine. Jason hosts a show with Steph Sanchez on Tuesdays on our network called Bully Ball. He'll be at the combine, so I'm sure he's going to have questions for John Lynch. I'll be doing updates with Jason from the combine every day that he's there, so we'll find out what's going on. We'll, talk about the scuttlebutt, as they say. I'm sure Jason will be out on the prowl for some juicy rumors and stuff like that, so we'll have that for you here. So give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't done so already. All right, Michelle, we've talked about your draft crush. We've talked about the Kawakami article. Now we got to talk about a former 49er who probably shouldn't have hit send. And the former 49er I'm talking about is Devondre Campbell. And apparently Devondre Campbell had time today because he is engaging in some back and forth on Twitter with people. And first of all, like, he never should have opened his mouth, because when you quit on your team, there is nothing you are going to be able to say to convince people that you were in the right. So, like, it's a losing battle. But here's one of the tweets from Devondre Campbell. I ain't addressing shit. I'm rich and never have to work another day of my life. And I told Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch that when they FaceTimed me and begged me to come out there an hour after Green Bay cut me. I really be sparing N-word. I play because I want to. Now, a couple of things, Michelle. First of all, if you remember, or if maybe Devondre Campbell doesn't really know what's going on, but the reason that the 49ers signed him is because they were scrambling after Eric Kendricks backed out of an agreement with the 49ers. So it doesn't surprise me that Lynch and Shanahan were FaceTiming him, asking him to come to the team because they were desperate for a linebacker.
Yeah, like, you were the second option. You were not the first. It's not like they're like, oh my God, we need you so bad. They wanted Eric Kendricks, who would have been a way better signing than Devondre Campbell. But it's just him being, I'm rich and never have to work. Like, shut up. You're like, when you're going into that you're actually hurt by what people are saying. You're actually frustrated. Like, they got to you for you having to say that. You know, you want to still be good enough to play in the NFL, and you're just simply not. So you can sit on your money and be sad and miserable. That's what it seems like you are.
Well, and not only that, but like, yeah, you're rich and you never have to work again, but then you agreed to work again. So it's like, you can't say, well, I never have to work again. But once you sign the contract, you're saying, I'm going to work for you again. So you can't really have that defense.
And if he did say to them, if he's actually being truthful, which I doubt, if he said, oh, I mean, I have all the money, I don't need to work again, but if you beg me, I'll come. Like, I don't think they would have signed him, A. But if they did, then that's a whole other issue with this front office. If a player is telling you, I don't ever have to work again, I have all the money I need, I don't really care to play, and you still signed him knowing that he could quit on you at any moment, you're just idiots and you deserved it. But I highly, highly doubt that's what he said to them.
And it doesn't make any sense, because if we remember, the whole reason that he got upset and refused to go into the game is because Dre Greenlaw came back and took his playing time. So it's like, you were upset supposedly that you weren't getting to work. And that's why you stopped working. Now
and the whole thing was Green Bay coaches didn't use him right. That was, he was so frustrated. He wanted to go to a new team. Like he wanted to play still in the NFL. That had nothing to do with it. You just weren't good anymore. And you didn't have the excuse. Again, you can't, I mean, how many times can you blame the coach not being good? Like this is a new team and you're still not good. I think he's realizing now that his career's over and I get it. You're frustrated by that and sad by it. But yeah, I mean, a gross look by him for sure.
Devondre Campbell, like just when you thought you couldn't make your situation any worse, you start with, I'm rich and never have to work another day in my life.
Which too many of these players have gone bankrupt after being rich, way more richer than Devondre Campbell. So be careful, sir.
There are so many people in his mentions being like, yeah, it's a good thing you never have to work another day in your life because you're never gonna. Like, you're putting it on a tee for people.
I mean, now he wasn't probably going to get another chance anyways because of him just quitting on a team. But now you're out here saying that, like, I don't have to work. Like, I can quit on anybody. You're literally never going to get another job in the NFL.
Yeah, the Strawberry Reacts points out he was actually the third option. We don't know who the second option was, but it was Kyle that mentioned it in one of the pressers. Like, yeah, there was actually another guy that we thought we were going to get that it didn't work out either. So it's like you were not even option 1 or option 2, or maybe not, so like, just shut up, man. Like we had forgotten about you, we had forgotten about the whole thing. And now like, you're just bringing it up again for no reason at all. Like, don't hit send. Yeah, Herm Edwards said once way back when I worked at ESPN, don't press send. He used to come in anytime somebody would tweet something stupid.
I'm wondering what they're going to do with the linebacker position. Do they re-sign Dre Greenlaw? Is that the goal here? Bobby Wagner, would he ever play for the 49ers? I don't know. But he still has it in him, even though he's old. There's options out there. Obviously, Zach Bond, he was just a first team All-Pro. I didn't realize this is his first year playing inside linebacker. I don't know how I missed that. I forgot he was drafted as edge and only played edge with the Saints, and he was not good. It was a huge bust. And then the Eagles signed him, moved him to inside linebacker, and instantly was a first team All-Pro. So interesting there that was his first year playing that position.
I don't know what they're going to do, quite honestly. They need to address it in a big way. I think they'd like to have Dre back, but, Matt Barrows said he wants to sort of be the man. He wants to run his own shop was the term that he used, because obviously you can't do that with Fred Warner. So if he wants to go, that would be a big, big loss. But I wouldn't mind the 49ers if they could swing it going Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, D Winters, and they'll probably have to draft somebody or sign a veteran guy. I would be okay with that. But I don't know if Greenlaw decides he wants out, then that's another hole that they need to patch up.
You're not worried about if you went into the season with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw as your starters with Greenlaw. It's been, we really just don't see players after an Achilles come back. It's just so rare that he's going to stay healthy and be able to be out there. So that's my worry. And then you would have just D Winters as his backup. I don't. Your guys' obsession with D Winters, I don't get it. He's bad. He's just bad. He's bad. He cannot be. I don't even think he should be a backup. He should be a third string. So I don't know how comfortable I'd feel with that being their plan.
Yeah, Michelle being really mean. Surprise, surprise. Okay, one more thing before we go. This was fascinating. I texted you 2 stats that I found, and they both come from SF Data 49ers on X. The first one was just infuriating, but I have to bring it to you nonetheless. The 49ers were terrible in third and short situations last year. The Niners offense converted less than 48% of their third and short situations last year. And third and short, for context, is 2 yards or less. So when they needed 2 yards or less on third down, the Niners converted less than 48% of the time. That is hideously bad. In fact, it's second worst in the league. Only the Browns were worse, Michelle. How can this be? With all the talent the 49ers have and Kyle Shanahan, how could they be this bad on third and short?
Well, Jordan Mason was not good on third and short. We had the offensive line not show up this year. The play calling wasn't always inspiring, right? There's a lot of things that went into play here, but that's definitely, you're not going to succeed if you struggle in that area.
That is hideously bad. And it's compounded, Michelle, by the fact that they don't go for it on fourth down. So in a situation where you should easily be able to convert and keep a drive going and not have to punt or attempt a field goal with Jake friggin' Moody, the 49ers could not get it done. And then their conservatism compounds the mistake or the failure. And so they don't give themselves another chance to get it on fourth down. And that's how the offense ends up being so bad. And the team ends up 6-11. Like, that is hideously bad. That has to change next season. And to me, that's on Kyle Shanahan.
Kyle Shanahan needs to look at the season overall in his play calling and look hard in the mirror and not just say, well, if it was executed correctly, it would have been good. No, like, teams have caught on. This happens to every great play caller. Teams catch on. Defenses catch on to your scheme and they learn how to defend it. That's what happened with Kyle Shanahan. And I understand it would have been as bad, and he still was super high in total yards, but their red zone offense struggled. Their, like you said, their short yardage one struggled. Like, he needs to fix certain areas. And obviously just getting back healthy players will help that a little bit, but he needs to be open to change and figure out little new pieces of his scheme and not just doing the same old, same old.
Don't just run up the middle when you're off, when the interior of your offensive line is the weakest part. And then this is the other stat from SF Data 49ers, and it's defensively on third down. Third downs are a big problem for the Niners last year. San Francisco's defense allowed the second highest conversion rate on opponent third and long situations last year. So think about that. On third downs, when the offense was set up to succeed on 3rd and 2 or less, they couldn't do it. And on defense, when the defense was set up to succeed on 3rd and 7 or longer, the 49ers were second worst in allowing the opponent to convert. And I'm looking right at Nick Sorensen in this situation because he was bad. He was not disguising anything. And it was basically like, oh, they'd play like straight up man coverage on third down every time. They wouldn't blitz anybody. The defensive line wouldn't get there and receivers would be wide ass open. But those are two devastating stats for the 2024 49ers.
Yeah, and when you're on defense out there in the field, that's kind of demoralizing, right? When you keep giving up those, like, you're playing well on 1st and 2nd down, and you're like, okay, just one more down, 3rd and 7 or longer, right? Just get off the field. Just get off the field. And you keep allowing those. That has to just be so frustrating. Like, that's way worse than just being bad on 1st or 2nd. Like, then you're like, okay, well, we restarted the downs anyway. Like, I don't mind when for some reason on 1st and 10, if they get a first down, it's like, okay, well, but when it's 3rd and long and they get it, and it's like, oh, so you have to do it all over again. Like, you have to do the whole 3 downs over again and hope to do it again. So that is, and that stat is correct. I just checked on it. Only the Bills defense was worse, which is surprising. But the other teams right down at the bottom, the Cardinals, the Saints, the Titans, the Colts, the Bears, like all bad defenses. So yeah, the 49ers you can't be both bad at picking up short yardage on offense and then giving up long yardage on third down on defense. Those are two things that you do not want to be bad at.
The entire game plan on defense is to get the other team in 3rd and long. That's what defensive coordinators spend all week trying to do, because on 3rd and long, one, they're going to pass. So that, is easier to call plays for as a defensive coordinator. And two, that's when you bust out the exotic, crazy defenses that confuse the hell out of people. That's when you are supposed to be at the biggest advantage as a defense in 3rd and long. And the 49ers were awful at it. And that also goes to coaching. And that's on Nick Sorensen. That's part of the reason Nick Sorensen is no longer with the San Francisco 49ers organization. I have faith that Robert Saleh will be much better in that situation next year.
Yeah, I do think a big part of that is their lack of pass rush, right? For the 3rd and long. So I just quickly pulled up how many sacks they had on 3rd and long last year. 7 total in the year. Only the Cardinals, Bears, and Falcons had fewer sacks on 3rd and long than the 49ers. Not great.
I bet you Nick Bosa had about 6 of those.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I can look up that real quick too. But that's definitely the problem. You fix that defensive line, and whether it be interior, actually, Nick Bosa had 1.5 of those. Gross Matos had 3. He led the team. Leonard Floyd had 2.5. Nick Bosa only 1.5. Those are the only 3 guys with a sack on 3rd and long this year.
Well, then I take back everything I said. Jed York is totally justified in regretting the Nick Bosa contract. Yeah.
That actually is pretty bad for Nick Bosa.
That is when you want your guy to be at his best. Now, I'm sure, offenses were, double teaming him, chipping him, all that stuff. But they do that to all the great pass rushers. That can't be an excuse. But again, hopefully that gets much, much better in 2025. that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching, for all your comments. We really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We're live every single weekday. If this is your first time here, we go live after all breaking news. We've got different hosts every single day of the week. Please give us a chance. I promise you, you will like what you see and what you hear. Michelle, thank you very much. As always, I appreciate it. Thank you to BetUS. And by the way, just another reminder, BetUS has a casino. If you like slots or live casino dealers, you can take advantage of BetUS' amazing 200% sign-up bonus to up to $5,000 or 20% for crypto sign-up bonus up to $5,000 as well. I always ask you on Friday, Michelle, what are your weekend plans? What do you got going on?
I was going to go join a Mardi Gras celebration tonight and watch some bands out and about in Galveston. But like I said, it's 30 degrees. So it's going to be one of those weekends that I think are just wasted because this is the last, this weekend is cold, but after that, it'll be fine. So I'm probably not going to do much this weekend.
Michelle doesn't go out when it's cold, unless, of course, you decide to go on an outdoor walking tour when it's 30 degrees.
I will say it has not been 30 degrees since you were here. So we had beautiful weeks after you left. You came at a very bad time, and then it's cold again. So it's very few weekends where it's cold. So when it happens, it's not worth going out. It's too cold. But yeah, I had to put on a winter coat when you were here. It's the only time I've ever worn a winter coat since moving here ever.
Michelle's like, I don't even know if I have some. You had to go into the attic and pull out clothes from the attic.
We pulled out jackets I didn't even remember we owned. I was shocked.
Did you end up taking your wife out for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, I brought her to an empanada bar. It was so good. Oh my goodness. We have this new empanada bar. So stinking amazing.
Not that it, helps people now because Valentine's Day is over, but I found a site online where you could make a custom chocolate bar and you could pick like the kind of chocolate and the toppings to put on it. And you like create a custom chocolate bar, perfect for whoever you're getting it for. And you order it up, they delivered it. Home run. I could not have gotten my wife a better gift for Valentine's Day. And I got 3 of them. So when she finished it, I just put another one like on her pillow and she walked in. She was like, I just finished this. What is happening? And then she finished that one and I put another one on the pillow. I'm like the best husband ever. So
by the third one though, did you tell her like that's it? So she wasn't looking for like more?
No, she said, don't tell me how many there are. I don't want to know. She's just hoping they continually appear. But
now you're going to have to buy her more.
I know. But it was definitely worth it. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye, y'all.